Chapter 1: A New World. The ship descended through the thick atmosphere, its hull trembling as it sliced through layers of clouds that blanketed the surface of the New World. Inside the cockpit, Commander Leah Carter watched intently as the navigation systems guided them toward their designated landing site. The planet below was lush and green, a stark contrast to the barren, dying Earth they had left behind. This was their chance, humanity's chance, to start anew. "Final approach," Leah announced, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Prepare for landing." The crew, a mix of scientists, engineers, and soldiers, strapped themselves in and exchanged nervous glances. They had spent years preparing for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare them for the reality of setting foot on an alien world. The ship touched down with a soft thud, the landing gear sinking slightly into the spongy soil. Leah exhaled slowly, her grip on the controls relaxing. They had made it. "Landing successful," she said, relief evident in her tone. "Welcome to our new home, everyone." The crew cheered, the tension of the descent melting away into excitement. This was the culmination of years of planning, sacrifice, and hope. They had left behind a dying planet, and now they stood at the threshold of a new beginning. Leah unbuckled her harness and stood, her gaze sweeping across the crew. "Let's get to work. We have a colony to build." The airlock hissed open, and Leah was the first to step onto the surface of the New World. The ground was soft beneath her boots, and the air, though unfamiliar, was breathable. She took a deep breath, savoring the freshness of it, a welcome change from the stale, recycled air of the ship. Around her, the landscape stretched out in all directions, a tapestry of green hills, dense forests, and crystal-clear rivers. It was almost too perfect, as if the planet had been waiting for them all along. The crew quickly set to work, unloading equipment, setting up shelters, and beginning the arduous task of establishing a new colony. Leah oversaw it all, her mind racing with the possibilities this world offered. They could grow crops, build homes, and create a society that was free from the mistakes of the past. But even as they worked, there was a lingering sense of unease that Leah couldn't shake. The planet was beautiful, yes, but it was also untouched, pristine in a way that felt almost unnatural. There were no signs of large predators, no signs of intelligent life, and the absence of such things was as unsettling as their presence might have been. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the landscape, Leah gathered the crew around a makeshift campfire. They were tired but exhilarated, the thrill of discovery still fresh in their minds. "We've made an incredible start today," Leah said, her voice carrying over the crackle of the fire. "But we need to stay vigilant. This planet may seem like a paradise, but we have no idea what secrets it holds. Our priority is survival, and that means we need to be cautious." The crew nodded in agreement, their expressions serious. They knew the risks, they had been briefed on every possible danger, but nothing could truly prepare them for the unknown. Leah's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight dipped below the hills. In the growing darkness, the landscape took on a different character, the shadows lengthening and deepening. For a moment, Leah thought she saw something move in the distance, a flicker of light, a shift in the shadows, but when she blinked, it was gone. She shook her head, dismissing it as a trick of the light. But the unease lingered, a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. "We'll explore more tomorrow," Leah continued, pulling her attention back to the crew. "For now, get some rest. We have a lot of work ahead of us." As the crew dispersed to their shelters, Leah remained by the fire, her thoughts troubled. They had come here to build a new life, to escape the failures of the past. But as she stared into the flames, she couldn't help but wonder if they had truly left those failures behind or if they had simply brought them to a new world. Chapter 2: Forgotten Ruins. The morning sun rose over the horizon, casting a warm light over the nascent colony. The crew, rested and eager to continue their work, began their day with renewed energy. Leah Carter stood at the edge of the camp, her eyes scanning the landscape as the mist lifted from the ground, revealing the untouched beauty of the world around them. But Leah's thoughts were elsewhere. The unease from the previous night still lingered, gnawing at the back of her mind. She had dismissed it as nerves, the natural anxiety of being in an unknown environment, but something told her that there was more to it. "Commander," a voice called out, pulling Leah from her thoughts. It was Dr. Elena Vasquez, the colony's lead scientist. "We found something." Leah's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "We were conducting a routine survey of the surrounding area," Elena explained as she gestured for Leah to follow. "About a kilometer from here, we discovered something unusual, some kind of structure. It's partially buried, but from what we can tell, it's definitely not natural." Leah followed Elena through the dense undergrowth, her pulse quickening with each step. The forest was alive with the sounds of strange birds and rustling leaves, but there was an underlying stillness that made her skin prickle. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath. They reached the site where a group of crew members had gathered, standing around what appeared to be a large stone structure jutting out of the ground. The stone was weathered and covered in thick vines, but its edges were too sharp, too precise to be natural. "What do you make of it?" Leah asked, crouching down to get a closer look. Elena knelt beside her, running her fingers over the surface of the stone. "It's ancient, that's for sure. The stone is unlike anything we've encountered before, dense, almost metallic. And look at these carvings." Leah peered closer and saw faint markings etched into the stone. They were intricate, almost geometric, but they didn't resemble any known language or symbol. The patterns seemed to twist and turn in on themselves, creating a dizzying effect that made Leah's head swim. "What do you think it is?" Leah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure," Elena admitted, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But it's clear that someone or something built this. And judging by the wear, it's been here for a very, very long time." Leah stood, her mind racing. This was the discovery of a lifetime, proof that they weren't the first to set foot on this planet. But it also raised more questions than it answered. Who had built this structure? What had happened to them? And why had they left? "We need to excavate more," Leah said, her tone decisive. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with here." Elena nodded, already issuing orders to the team. They began clearing away the dirt and vegetation that had accumulated over the centuries, revealing more of the structure. As they worked, more carvings and symbols emerged, each more intricate and perplexing than the last. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky, but the team's excitement only grew as more of the structure came into view. It was massive, extending deep into the ground, with chambers and passageways that hinted at a vast underground complex. "This is incredible," Elena murmured, her eyes wide with awe. "We're standing on the remains of an ancient civilization. The implications of this are staggering." Leah nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were treading on dangerous ground. The structure, though silent and still, exuded a sense of foreboding, as if it held secrets that were meant to stay buried. As they unearthed what appeared to be the entrance to the complex, a cold breeze swept through the clearing, sending a shiver down Leah's spine. She stepped back, her instinct screaming at her to stop, to turn back, but she couldn't. The pull of discovery was too strong. "Elena, I want a full survey of this site," Leah said, her voice firm. "But proceed with caution. We don't know what we're dealing with, and I don't want to take any unnecessary risks." Elena looked up at Leah, her expression serious. "Understood, Commander. We'll be careful." As the team continued their work, Leah took a step back and surveyed the scene. The excitement of the discovery was palpable, but so was the undercurrent of unease. They had come here to build a new life, but now it seemed they had stumbled upon the remnants of another, a civilization that had vanished without a trace. And as Leah watched the shadows deepen within the uncovered entrance, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to awaken something that should have remained forgotten. Chapter 3: The Planet's Whisper. The air inside the ancient structure was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Leah Carter led the team deeper into the underground complex, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The passageway was narrow, forcing them to walk single file, their flashlights casting long, flickering shadows that danced on the walls. The deeper they went, the more the temperature seemed to drop. The cold, damp air clung to Leah's skin, making her shiver despite the protective gear she wore. But it wasn't just the cold that unsettled her, it was the silence. The oppressive, almost unnatural silence that pressed down on them like a weight. "Elena, how much further does this passage go?" Leah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It felt wrong to speak any louder in this place. Elena, who was studying a scanner, glanced up. "It's hard to say, Commander. The readings are strange. The walls are blocking most of the signals, but it looks like the passage opens up into a larger chamber just ahead." Leah nodded and gestured for the team to keep moving. Her heart was pounding in her chest, the sense of foreboding growing stronger with each step. Something about this place felt wrong, as if they were trespassing on sacred ground. They reached the end of the passage and stepped into a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, disappearing into darkness. The walls were covered in the same intricate carvings they had seen outside, but here they were even more elaborate, almost alive with movement in the dim light. At the center of the chamber stood a massive stone structure, like an altar or a throne, its surface polished to a mirror-like sheen. It was flanked by two towering statues, each depicting a figure that was both human and otherworldly, their faces hidden beneath ornate masks. Leah approached the structure cautiously, her flashlight playing over its surface. The carvings here were different, more fluid, almost organic, as if they were meant to represent something alive. "Elena, what do you make of this?" Leah asked, gesturing to the structure. Elena stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's incredible. The craftsmanship is unlike anything we've seen before. These carvings, they almost seem to be telling a story." "A story?" Leah echoed, her curiosity piqued. Elena nodded, running her fingers lightly over the carvings. "Yes, look here. This figure," she pointed to one of the masked statues, "it seems to be a guardian of some kind, protecting the structure. And these symbols, they could represent a ritual or a form of communication with the planet itself." Leah frowned. "Communication? With the planet?" Elena glanced at her, her expression serious. "It's just a theory, but if this civilization believed that the planet was alive, they might have developed rituals or technologies to interact with it. It's possible that this entire structure is designed to facilitate that connection." Leah's unease deepened. "If that's true, then we need to be very careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here, and I don't want to risk triggering something we can't control." But even as she spoke, Leah felt a strange pull, as if the structure was calling to her, urging her to come closer. She shook her head, trying to clear the fog that seemed to be settling over her mind. "Let's document everything we can," Leah ordered. "But no one touches anything until we know more. We don't want to disturb whatever's here." The team set to work, scanning the carvings, taking samples, and mapping the chamber. But as they worked, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched by the statues, by the carvings, by the planet itself. The silence was no longer just oppressive, it was alive, a living entity that seemed to hum with an energy just below the surface. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them trembled. It was a subtle movement at first, a low rumble that grew steadily louder, until the entire chamber seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. "Commander, what's happening?" one of the crew members called out, his voice tinged with panic. Leah held up a hand, trying to stay calm. "Everyone stay close. Don't panic." But even as she spoke, the rumbling grew more intense, and the carvings on the walls seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie light. The air grew thick with a strange, metallic scent, and Leah felt a low hum reverberate through her bones, as if the planet itself was speaking to her. "Elena, we need to get out of here." Leah shouted over the noise. "Now!" The team scrambled to gather their equipment, but as they turned to leave, the entrance to the chamber suddenly sealed shut, the stone walls closing in with a resounding crash. They were trapped. Leah's heart raced as she scanned the room, looking for another way out. The hum in the air grew louder, almost deafening, and she felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "We have to find another exit," she yelled, but her voice was drowned out by the noise. Suddenly, the altar at the center of the room began to glow with an otherworldly light, and the carvings on its surface seemed to shift and change, forming new patterns that Leah couldn't comprehend. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the rumbling stopped. The chamber fell silent once more, but the oppressive feeling had only deepened. Leah took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "Is everyone okay?" The crew nodded, their faces pale with fear, but unharmed. "Elena, what just happened?" Leah asked, her voice trembling. Elena shook her head, her eyes wide with disbelief. I don't know. It's like the planet reacted to us. Like it was testing us." Leah stared at the glowing altar, her mind racing. Whatever they had awakened, it wasn't friendly. And now, they were trapped, at the mercy of a planet that seemed to be very much alive. "We need to find a way out of here," Leah said, her voice firm. "And fast." But as she turned back to the altar, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Chapter 4: Echoes of the Ancients. The oppressive silence hung heavy in the chamber, broken only by the ragged breaths of the trapped crew. The eerie glow from the central altar cast long, distorted shadows across the walls, illuminating the intricate carvings that seemed to writhe and shift under the shifting light. Commander Leah Carter steadied herself, forcing down the rising panic threatening to overwhelm her. She couldn't afford to lose control, not now, when her team needed her most. "Is everyone accounted for?" Leah asked, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath. A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the chamber as each crew member checked in. Relief washed over her, at least no one was injured during the sudden upheaval. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached Leah, her face pale but eyes sharp with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Commander, whatever happened just now was no coincidence. The moment we entered this chamber, it's like we triggered some kind of response." Leah nodded, her gaze fixed on the glowing altar. "Agreed. We need to understand what we're dealing with here if we're going to find a way out." She turned to Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the team's communications expert. "Marcus, can you get a signal through these walls? We need to contact the surface team." Marcus was already fiddling with his handheld device, his brow furrowed in concentration. After a few moments, he shook his head in frustration. "No luck, Commander. Something is interfering with all frequencies. It's like the walls are absorbing the signals." A sense of dread settled in Leah's stomach. They were cut off, trapped underground with an unknown force that had already demonstrated its power. "All right," Leah began, taking a deep breath. "First priority is finding or creating an exit. Teams of 2, search the perimeter for any weak points or alternative passages. Stay alert and report anything unusual." The crew moved swiftly into action, pairing off and dispersing around the vast chamber. Leah remained near the center with Elena, both of them studying the enigmatic altar that dominated the room. As Leah circled the structure, she noticed that the carvings had indeed changed since their arrival. What were once static patterns now depicted a series of images, a narrative unfolding before their eyes. "Elena, look at this," Leah said, pointing to a sequence of symbols. "These weren't here before." Elena's eyes widened as she examined the newly formed engravings. "You're right. It's like the structure is communicating." Leah felt a chill run down her spine. But communicating what? A warning? A threat? Elena traced her fingers over the symbols, her mind racing to decipher their meaning. Perhaps neither. Maybe it's trying to tell us a story. Before Leah could respond, a sudden gasp echoed from across the chamber. They turned to see Private Kira Lawson staring at the wall, her flashlight illuminating a newly revealed passageway. "Commander, I think I found something," Kira called out, her voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. Leah and Elena hurried over, followed by the rest of the crew. The passage was narrow and dark, a gaping maw leading deeper into the unknown. "Good work, Tara," Leah acknowledged, peering into the darkness. "Any idea where it leads?" Tara shook her head. "No, ma'am. It wasn't here a minute ago. The wall just shifted." Leah exchanged a wary glance with Elena. The structure was changing around them, responding to their presence in real time. "All right," Leah decided. "We don't have many options. We'll proceed cautiously. Marcus, you stay here and keep trying to establish contact with the surface. The rest of us will explore this passage and look for an exit." Marcus nodded, already adjusting his equipment. The rest of the team assembled behind Leah, their flashlights piercing the darkness ahead. As they ventured into the passage, the air grew warmer, and a low hum resonated through the walls, vibrating through their bodies. The hum was almost musical, a haunting melody that seemed to beckon them forward. Leah kept her hand on her sidearm, every sense on high alert. The passage sloped downward, leading them deeper into the heart of the planet. The walls around them began to change, the stone giving way to a smooth, glass-like material that reflected their light in a kaleidoscope of colors. "Commander, this is incredible," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This material is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's almost alive." Leah couldn't deny the mesmerizing beauty surrounding them, but unease gnawed her. The further they went, the more she felt an unseen presence observing them, analyzing their every move. The passage suddenly opened into another chamber, this one smaller but filled with a soft, pulsating light emanating from crystalline structures that sprouted from the floor and ceiling like stalagmites and stalactites. At the center of the chamber floated a translucent sphere, swirling with mist and flickers of light. It hovered effortlessly above a pedestal, radiating a gentle warmth that enveloped the crew as they approached. "What is that?" whispered Sergeant David Kim, his eyes locked on the orb. Elena stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overpowering her caution. "It appears to be some sort of energy source, or perhaps a storage device." As she reached out tentatively, the orb reacted, the swirling mist inside accelerating and changing colors, shifting through shades of blue and green. A soft whisper filled the chamber, words indistinct but filled with emotion. Leah felt a sudden pressure in her head, a sensation of thoughts not her own pressing against her consciousness. She staggered back, gripping her temples as images flooded her mind, visions of vast landscapes, towering cities, and beings of light and shadow intertwined in harmony. "Commander, are you okay?" Elena's voice cut through the barrage, grounding Leah back in reality. Leah blinked, her vision clearing as the images subsided. She looked around to see that the rest of the crew were similarly affected, some clutching their heads, others staring into space with glazed eyes. I think it's trying to communicate," Leah managed, her voice shaky. "It's showing us something." Elena nodded, excitement lighting up her features. "Yes. It's sharing memories, perhaps of the civilization that once lived here." Before they could process further, the whispers coalesced into discernible words, echoing inside their minds rather than through their ears. "Welcome, travelers." The crew exchanged stunned glances, the reality of the situation settling over them like a heavy cloak. Leah stepped forward, addressing the unseen voice with as much composure as she could muster. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" There was a pause, a silence filled with anticipation, before the voice responded. "We are the Guardians, the echoes of those who came before. You have awakened us, and now, our knowledge is yours to bear." Elena's eyes shone with wonder. "This is extraordinary. Think of what we could learn." But Leah remained cautious. "Why have you trapped us here? We mean no harm. We're simply seeking a new home." The voice resonated again, carrying a note of sorrow. "This world has seen much destruction, those before sought to control, to dominate. Balance was lost. We must ensure the cycle does not repeat. Understanding dawned on Leah. You're testing us. To see if we're like those who came before. Yes. Your actions will decide your fate, and the fate of this world. Silence fell as the weight of the words settled over them. Leah knew that their every move from this point on would be scrutinized, that their survival depended on proving their intentions were peaceful. She took a deep breath, meeting the gaze of each crew member in turn. We understand. We only wish to live in harmony with this world, to learn and to grow without causing harm. The sphere pulsed brighter, the warmth in the chamber intensifying. Then show us, Leah Carter. Prove that your kind has learned from the past. The path forward lies within your choices. As the words faded, a section of the chamber wall slid open, revealing a passage bathed in natural light leading upward. Relief and apprehension warred within Leah as she gestured to her team. All right, everyone. Let's move carefully. Our actions matter now more than ever. As they ascended through the new passage, Leah couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges ahead would be great, but perhaps, with understanding and respect, they could find a way to coexist with the enigmatic consciousness of this planet. But questions lingered. What exactly had happened to the previous inhabitants? What trials awaited them to prove their worthiness? And could they truly break the cycle of destruction that had come before? As they emerged back into the light of day, Leah knew that their journey was just beginning, and the fate of their new home hung delicately in the balance. Chapter 5: The Trials of Harmony. As the crew emerged from the underground passage into the daylight, a heavy sense of responsibility weighed on them. The warmth of the sun was a stark contrast to the cold, oppressive atmosphere they had just left behind, but the relief they might have felt was tempered by the knowledge of what lay ahead. Commander Leah Carter scanned the horizon. The landscape looked the same, lush, vibrant, and deceptively peaceful, but now she saw it through new eyes. Every tree, every blade of grass, seemed to pulse with the same subtle energy that had enveloped them in the chamber below. We need to be careful, Leah said, her voice firm as she turned to her crew. Whatever that presence was, it's watching us, judging us. Every action we take from here on out could determine our survival. The crew nodded, their expressions a mix of determination and anxiety. They had come to this world seeking a fresh start, but now it was clear that the price of that fresh start was higher than they had anticipated. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of scientific curiosity and concern. Commander, I think we need to approach this scientifically. The entity mentioned balance. Perhaps that means we need to show that we can live in harmony with the planet, that we won't repeat the mistakes of those who came before. Leah considered this. You're right, Helena. But how do we prove that? What exactly is it looking for? Elena glanced around, taking in the surroundings with a critical eye. I think we need to start by respecting the natural order here. We need to observe, to understand how this ecosystem works, and make sure that whatever we do, we don't disrupt it. Leah nodded. All right. We focus on minimal impact. No more digging, no more disrupting the land unless absolutely necessary. We need to show that we're here to coexist, not conquer. As the crew set about adjusting their operations, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being guided, that their actions were subtly influenced by the consciousness that watched over them. The strange energy they had felt in the chamber seemed to linger in the air, a constant reminder of the stakes. Days passed, and the crew settled into a new rhythm. They carefully catalogued the local flora and fauna, noting the intricate relationships between species and the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Every decision, where to set up equipment, how to source food and water, was made with the utmost caution, always with an eye toward preserving the natural harmony of the planet. And all the while, the presence remained silent, its judgment hanging over them like a sword poised to strike. But as they worked, strange phenomena began to occur, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing day. The plants seemed to react to their presence, shifting their growth patterns in response to the crew's movements. Animals that had once been wary now approached the camp with a curious calm, as if drawn by some invisible force. One night, as Leah stood on the edge of the camp, watching the stars twinkle overhead, she noticed something peculiar. The sky was different, more vibrant, with stars that shimmered and pulsed in a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. "Commander," a voice called softly behind her. It was Sergeant David Kim, one of the crew's more experienced soldiers. "Do you see that?" Leah nodded. "The stars. They're moving." David stepped up beside her, his gaze fixed on the heavens. "I've been watching them every night since we arrived, and this is the first time I've seen anything like this. It's like they're trying to tell us something." Leah's mind raced. Could this be another test? A sign? She turned to David, a thought forming. Maybe it's a map. Maybe the planet is trying to guide us somewhere. David frowned, considering the possibility. If that's the case, we should follow it. But we need to be cautious, this could just as easily be a trap. Leah agreed. We'll take a small team and investigate. If this is another trial, we need to approach it carefully. The next morning, Leah gathered a team: Elena, David, and Private Kira Lawson. Armed with nothing more than their wits and a few supplies, they set out toward the direction the stars seemed to point, guided by the mysterious rhythm in the sky. The journey was arduous, the terrain growing more rugged as they ventured deeper into the planet's wilderness. The air grew thicker, charged with the same energy they had felt in the chamber. It was as if the planet itself was alive, its heartbeat echoing in their minds. After hours of trekking, they arrived at a secluded valley, hidden from the world by towering cliffs. At the center of the valley stood a massive tree, ancient and imposing, its branches stretching toward the sky like the fingers of a giant. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This tree, it's like the heart of the planet." Leah approached the tree cautiously, her hand resting on the rough bark. The moment she touched it, a rush of sensations flooded her mind: memories, emotions, echoes of the past. She saw glimpses of the ancient civilization that had once thrived here, their rise and fall, their desperate attempts to harness the power of the planet, and their ultimate destruction. But she also saw something else: hope. The tree, and the planet it was connected to, held the potential for renewal, for healing. If they could prove themselves worthy, they could become part of this world, not as conquerors, but as caretakers. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the air filled with a low, resonant hum. The tree's branches swayed, and the energy in the air intensified, enveloping them in a cocoon of light. Leah's vision blurred, and she heard the voice again, clear and commanding. "You have come seeking a new home, but first, you must prove your understanding. This world is not yours to take. It must be earned." The light around them coalesced into shapes, figures made of pure energy, taking on the forms of the ancient beings who had once walked this world. They circled the team, their eyes, if they could be called that, glowing with a knowing light. "Show us your intentions, your respect for the balance. Fail, and this world will reject you as it did those before." Leah felt a surge of determination. This was the trial they had been warned about, the test of their worthiness. She turned to her team, their faces resolute despite the fear in their eyes. "We've come this far," Leah said, her voice strong. "We can't turn back now. Whatever this trial is, we'll face it together." The figures nodded in unison, and the light around them shifted, creating a series of illusions, challenges that mirrored the struggles of the ancient civilization. The team would have to navigate these trials, each designed to test their resolve, their understanding, and their commitment to the harmony of the planet. The first trial was a test of survival, an illusion of a barren landscape, where the team had to find sustenance without disrupting the fragile ecosystem. The second was a test of knowledge, a puzzle that required them to decipher the ancient language and unlock the secrets of the planet's energy. The third and final trial was a test of unity, forcing the team to work together to overcome a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, one that could only be conquered through cooperation and trust. As they completed each trial, the figures of light seemed to soften, their energy merging with the team, as if acknowledging their success. Finally, as they passed the last trial, the valley filled with a warm, golden light, and the figures of light bowed in unison. You have shown that you understand, that you seek harmony. This world will accept you, but remember, balance must always be maintained. The light faded, and the team found themselves back in the valley, the tree now glowing with a gentle, reassuring light. Leah felt a sense of peace settle over her, a connection to the planet that was deeper than anything she had ever known. They had passed the trials, but the journey was far from over. They had earned the right to stay, but with that right came the responsibility to protect and nurture the world they had chosen to call home. As they made their way back to the colony, Leah knew that their future was now intertwined with the fate of this planet. They had a chance to build something new, something better, but only if they could maintain the balance, the harmony that the planet demanded. The final test had yet to come, but Leah was ready. They had proven themselves worthy once, and they would do so again, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Chapter 6: The Final Balance. The return journey to the colony was marked by a profound sense of purpose. Leah Carter and her team moved with a quiet determination, the weight of what they had just experienced settling over them like a mantle. They had passed the trials set forth by the planet's consciousness, proving their intentions to live in harmony with this world. But Leah knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. As the colony came into view, Leah's thoughts were filled with the responsibilities they now bore. The trials had tested their survival skills, their knowledge, and their unity, but maintaining the balance they had promised was a long-term commitment. The planet had accepted them, but it would not hesitate to turn against them if they faltered. The crew greeted their return with a mix of relief and curiosity. Word of the mysterious events surrounding the ancient ruins had spread quickly, and everyone was eager to know what had transpired. Leah gathered the colony's leadership in the main operations tent, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The team that had accompanied her on the journey stood by her side, their faces solemn as she began to speak. "We've learned a lot about this planet," Leah began, her voice steady. "More than we could have imagined. The ruins we discovered aren't just remnants of an ancient civilization, they're a testament to what happens when balance is lost. The beings who once lived here sought to control the planet's power, and they paid the ultimate price." Murmurs spread through the room, but Leah continued before anyone could interrupt. "This world is alive. It has a consciousness that demands respect and harmony. We were tested, our survival, our understanding, our unity, and we passed. But that doesn't mean we're safe. We have to prove ourselves every day, through every action we take." Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of their discoveries. "The planet is willing to coexist with us, but we have to show that we won't make the same mistakes as those before us. Our technology, our methods, even our approach to survival, all of it has to be in service of maintaining the balance here." One of the engineers, a grizzled veteran named Cole Jensen, raised his hand. "Commander, what does this mean for our plans? We've got infrastructure to build, resources to harvest. How do we do that without disrupting the balance?" Leah nodded, understanding the concern. "It's going to be a challenge, but we have to be smarter about how we do things. Sustainable practices, minimal impact, and constant monitoring of the environment. We need to work with the planet, not against it." The room fell into a contemplative silence as the implications of Leah's words sank in. The colony's future was now bound to the delicate balance of this world, and every decision would have to be weighed carefully. Leah took a deep breath and looked around at the faces of her crew. "We didn't come here just to survive. We came here to build a new life, a better life. And that means making sacrifices, adapting, and respecting the world we've chosen to call home." There were nods of agreement, and Leah could see the resolve in their eyes. They understood the stakes, and they were ready to face whatever came next. In the days that followed, the colony began to transform. The changes were subtle at first: a shift in how they approached construction, new methods for harvesting resources without damaging the ecosystem, and a greater emphasis on studying the planet's natural rhythms. But as time went on, the changes became more pronounced. The colony's footprint on the land became lighter, more integrated with the surrounding environment. Gardens were planted using native flora, Water was sourced and recycled with minimal impact, and energy was drawn from renewable sources that harmonized with the planet's own energy flows. And all the while, the planet watched. Leah felt its presence in every decision, every action. The subtle hum of its consciousness was a constant reminder of the fragile balance they maintained. But with each passing day, she also felt a growing sense of connection, a bond that was forming between the colony and the world they inhabited. Then, one night, as Leah stood on the edge of the camp, gazing up at the stars, she felt the planet reach out to her once more. It was a gentle touch, a whisper in her mind that carried with it a sense of approval, of acceptance. The stars above shimmered, forming patterns that Leah had come to recognize as messages, as signs. This time, the message was clear: the colony had earned its place here, and the planet was ready to share its secrets, its knowledge, with those who had proven themselves worthy. Leah's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. They had done it, they had found a way to live in harmony with this world, to coexist as equals. But she also knew that this was not the end of their journey. The challenges would continue, the trials would evolve, and they would need to remain vigilant. But for now, Leah allowed herself a moment of peace. The path they had chosen was not an easy one, but it was the right one. And as long as they remained true to their principles, the colony would thrive. The following morning, Leah gathered the crew once more. "We've made incredible progress," she said, her voice filled with quiet confidence. "But there's still so much to learn. The planet has opened itself to us, and now it's our responsibility to explore, to understand, and to protect what we've been given." Elena smiled at Leah, her eyes shining with determination. "And we'll do it together, as a team, as a community." Leah nodded. Together. Always. And so, the colony continued to grow, not as a conqueror of a new world, but as a guardian, a caretaker of a living, breathing planet that had welcomed them into its embrace. They had found their home, and they would do everything in their power to ensure that it remained a place of balance, of harmony, and of hope for generations to come.